the Porsche 911. Its silhouette has become a sports car icon. Introduced in 1963, what better place to celebrate its 50th anniversary than at the Porsche Museum in Stuttgart.
Type 64. Such a simple name for such a far-out car. In 1939, Ferdinand Porsche builds a futuristic automobile that makes all other vehicles look out of date. Type 64 is not like any of the sports cars people know about. No large vertical grille, no huge freestanding headlamps, no wide fenders that transition into broad running boards, no externally mounted spare wheel. Type 64 anticipates much of what Porsche stands for today. There's the lightweight construction, engineered with a totally innovative technology. The aluminum body is only 1.5 millimeters thick. There's the aerodynamics of the vehicle, with softly rounded contours that flow into each other. There's that low-slung front lid and the narrow cockpit that seats the drivers behind each other. There's the ability to produce lots of power with very little engine displacement. A modified VW Boxer engine mounted in front of the rear axle delivers 33 horsepower, good for up to 140 kilometers per hour. And there's the rugged technology, so essential for long-distance racing. This is a high priority for the engineers because Type 64 was originally designed for the non-stop speed test from Berlin to Rome. But then World War II begins and the race never takes place. Yet, Type 64 is known today as the Berlin-Rome car, a vehicle that embodies Ferdinand Porsche's vision of motorsports, styling, engineering excellence, and driving pleasure, and which certainly must have inspired him even then to someday build cars under his own name. An American in Rouen, Dan Gurney wrote Formula One racing history at the French Grand Prix in 1962. So far, this great achievement was the only time Porsche won a race in the royal class of motor racing. The aerodynamic 8-cylinder 804 followed up this triumph by winning a home race on the Solitude circuit in Stuttgart, which unfortunately did not count towards the World Championship. Nevertheless, Gurney's success as he crossed the finishing line ahead of teammate Joe Bonnier, watched by 300,000 spectators, was as impressive as the magnificent setting of the Stuttgart Grand Prix. Incredible but true, the 804's success story lasted only 1 year. Although the new design had a lot to offer, disc brakes, double wishbone axle, coil springs, and an aluminum outer shell covering a tubular frame that looked like a birdcage. The speedy work of art weighed only 461 kilograms, about 1,016 pounds. But it topped 270 kilometers per hour, 168 miles per hour. The fuel capacity of 145 liters was divided between 2 tanks. What killed the project was a sense of reality. Despite their successes, Porsche engineers realized that continuing down the Formula One adventure track would be extremely costly. Too costly, because Porsche was just about to take over the Reuter coach building company. As a result, from 1963 onward, the company focused on GT sports cars and long-distance racing. It was not until the 1980s that Porsche again made headlines in Formula One racing. On behalf of TAG, the brand celebrated a brilliant comeback as engine supplier. Powered by engines from Zuffenhausen, the McLaren team became Formula One world champions 3 times in a row and won 25 Grand Prix races from 1983 to 1987. The 908 enjoys an excellent year in 1969. Cars of this model series drive to one victory after another at Brands Hatch, Monza, Targa Florio, Spa, and the Nürburgring. To make the success story absolutely perfect, Porsche needs just one more title, the coveted overall victory at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Porsche enters Le Mans with a 917 as well, but these powerful 12-cylinder cars, second to none in speed, have to leave the race before the finish. So all hope rests with Hans Hermann in his 908 Fastback. Hermann gives his all. In a dramatic finale, he duels with Jackie Ickx and his Ford GT. Despite a loss of brake power in the 908, he keeps the race open. In the last lap, Hermann loses a very close contest. The dream is over. After 24 hours on the course, Porsche misses taking the overall title by a mere 120 meters. Le Mans in 1970. After losing but just barely the year before, Porsche is doing everything to finally win this race. 24 of the 51 cars entering the race are Porsches. In the practice rounds, they pose a tough challenge to arch-rival Ferrari as expected. But once the race begins, everything changes. Ferrari struggles with technical problems. Then bad weather strikes. The straight stretches are virtually flooded, while the surface in the pit is dry. The mechanics change tires like clockwork, and the drivers give it all they've got. It's now time for the experienced drivers to show what they can do. Hans Hermann and Richard Atwood rack up lap after lap in their 917. About halfway through, in the middle of the night, they take the lead for good. They cross the finish line 60 kilometers ahead of the second-place car, a 917, driven by Gérard Larousse and Willi Kausen. Finally, Porsche has made it. After 20 years, it has won its first overall victory at Le Mans.
The Porsche 917. One angry monster of a sports car. A V12. This one was clocked at 242 miles an hour on the back straight of Le Mans. And this is a hybrid version combining the short and long tail cars, and it's extra wide. Someone said it looked like a pig, so they painted it pink, and is now known infamously as the Fat Pig. And then there's this, the turbocharged 917, not for mortals. But Mark Donohue dominated the Can-Am series with it. Well, we're in Stuttgart in October of 2013. And it was practically 50 years ago at this moment, in September of '63, that the 911 prototype was presented at the Frankfurt Auto Show. About a year later, the first production car was released. In the 1980s, Porsche was moving to front-engine, water-cooled cars, and a decision was being made to discontinue the 911. But there was a change of management, and the new chairman, coincidentally an American, resurrected the 911. And the rest, well, that's 50 years of Porsche history. The shape of a 911 really hasn't changed much over 50 years. And nothing comes to mind that matches that. And while motorsports has done a lot for building Porsche's reputation, Porsche has done a masterful job in creating and in eliciting an emotional response with its owners and hopeful owners. Like Tom Cruise says in the movie Risky Business, there's no substitute.